Where are my kids? Get up. Look.
Welcome back to the Joe Mobley Show. I am Joe Mobley, your host and the original uncloseted conservative. Guys, tonight we are talking about Leave the World Behind, which all week and last week when Samantha brought this idea up, I keep calling it The World Is Not Enough, which I know is an old James Bond movie. Leave the World Behind. That's what we're talking. We're also talking about just how bad the adult entertainment addiction and industry is. So if you have little ones, this first story is probably not for those little ears. Viewer discretion advised, I'll say. And we'll just be reacting to some clips, talking about other news. If you've been on my social, that you will have seen, which I will talk about at the end for my personal benefit, because you never know how those things will go. Before we get into that, let's get into this. And I'm going to shrink this ad a whole bunch because it was kind of ridiculous last week. All right. Tonight's show is brought to you by Z-Stack. Go to thejoemobleyshow.com/Z-Stack. Use promo code Mobley for the very best deals. Guys, health is important, and you need vitamins and supplements. You need to actually get this stuff before you get sick, especially if you're using it as an immune system booster. We're talking vitamin C, D, quercetin, and that other one. It just popped right out of my head. Zinc, yes, very important. Don't get Zicam. Don't get something worse. Get this, guys. The website is Z-Stack, or the company is Z-Stack. The website is thejoemobleyshow.com/Z-Stack. Promo code Mobley. Mobley is spelled Mobley. All right, so we just saved like a whole minute right there. Samantha, how are you?
I'm great. Today this has been, I feel like, one of the longest weeks that I've had in a really long time, but overall, can't complain.
I feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
With everything.
I spent at least half of my week watching Leave the World Behind, though, because it is a very long movie.
Listen, people say we watch this so you don't have to, and I've always railed against that because it sounds very leftist, kind of regime, kind of let us tell you what to think. Guys, this movie is so long. Please, you can't get that life back. We've already spent what felt like 100 man hours between the two of us watching it. I couldn't sit down and watch it in one sitting. It was like 4 sittings because it's boring.
I started watching it. Yeah, I started watching it on Monday and I finished it last night.
Oh, and this was her idea. Yeah,
it was. I wanted to share the joy.
Thank
And we're
you.
going to get into this. I don't think it's the first topic that we're going to talk about, but just a heads up, there are going to be spoilers. So if you do plan to watch this movie, may the odds be ever in your favor. We will send our thoughts and prayers. But there really isn't much to spoil because the biggest spoiler is that you spend 2.5 hours and pretty much nothing happens. Because it's not so much just about the fact that it's a long movie, it's the fact that a 2.5 hour movie probably could have been done in like 20 minutes. So
Yep.
it's
That's
it's
the
not
review.
good. Yeah, and we're done.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I oh, sorry Rumble. I gotta get you guys up in the chat. I yeah, basically what you
it's
just said. It's the worst. Oh my gosh, it's so freaking long. All right, Rumble chat, you are here. I have you. I can see you. I will type.
what are the
Hello.
Rumble chat people called rumblers? I
I don't know. Is it too soon? Is it too soon to talk about Parlor? Pour some out for Parlor.
Oh my goodness, I completely forgot about Parlor.
I know. That's big tech. They got us. All right, guys. We gave you the parental warning, so we'll dive into. Gosh, it sucks that this is the news, but it is. If you haven't heard, our culture has a problem with adult entertainment. Uh, and all kinds of things. It's not even just pornography anymore. It's like fetishes and weird kinks, which are like a fetish. A kink is supposed to be a fringe thing. And our society insists on grabbing that fringe thing and bringing it to the center and normalizing it. Again, I'll tell you guys, if you have to normalize something, that means it's not normal. You can restore something. We need to restore faith in God in this country. We need to restore the Constitution, but we don't need to normalize it. Anyway, apparently, I heard through the grapevine that all of these websites, you guys know the big famous one that is always in trouble for not doing age verification and for having trafficking victims and sexual assault victims have their videos on the site. They've contacted and said, hey, I'm in the video. I'm 14. I'm 15. Can you please take this down? And they say, no, we can't verify that this is you. Which is total nonsense. Well, now to get away from it, because a lot of states, like my state, Virginia, has a rigorous age verification. So if you want to go to one of those sites, you have to submit a photo of your government issue ID, which is very easy to get around with fakes or with a VPN, putting it in a country that doesn't have the same laws. But now to get away from that and to get the Fed off of their backs, essentially, and to appease China, because China does this big time, a lot of these e-girls aren't even real. So there are guys at home doing fake intimacy with fake women online, which is absolutely insane. This is already outdated. This is just a couple of weeks old. But this AI model chick, Emily, what's her face, Pellegrini, had 213,000 fans. Again, fair warning, her Instagram is not the best, not the most wholesome, but we'll flip over to it for just a second. As of today, as of right now, she has almost 260,000 followers. Here she is, this very voluptuous gal. But the problem is, she's not real. Not real at all. She's a computer-generated AI model who's earning $10K a month off of your creepy internet fetishes. So I just, I kind of hit you with this story like yesterday. What are your thoughts?
Well, I always find this subject really fascinating. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the Whatever podcast.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think we can all agree that society is in a total moral downfall. We are in utter and total moral decay. And what few things that keep us in line with what is right versus what is wrong, a lot of times has to do with whether or not we respect each other as human beings, whether or not we value each other as human beings. But having these AI generated figures kind of eliminates that argument, because it's like, well, you're not actually dehumanizing anybody because it's not a human being. So it just seems like the more, every possible way that we can possibly go around the barriers that might keep us in line and keep us on a straight and narrow path, society is finding more ways to get around that and to find more justification to be more morally depraved, to push those lines, to push those boundaries, and to make morality in general just completely and totally subjective. Clearly not going to do us any favors. And as I mentioned, the Whatever podcast, if you listen to any of the girls on that show, well, the ones who are generally on morality in general, right, just side of the screen, they're generally all OnlyFans models, and they all, and I'm not shaming anybody. I feel like this is just kind of the society that we are raising kids in and raising these young women in. But they all justify this this existence with no moral boundaries whatsoever. That because they feel that this is okay, that it's totally fine. It doesn't matter who it hurts, because they're just making their choices to do what they want to do. And it's the person on the other end of the screen, it's their choice to participate in that. So they really have no responsibility in it whatsoever. So it's just really sad to see, because from all sides, it seems like nobody wants to solve any problems. Nobody wants to keep this from happening. They just want to find more ways to make it, as you said, normalized.
You said that you're not gonna call anyone out. What is the word that you used? Yeah, I'm gonna shame you guys. You should be ashamed of yourselves. It's absolutely ridiculous. I love the episode that Candace Owens was on when they were talking, when she was talking to those OnlyFans chicks. It's an interesting podcast to get through, because a lot of those women are so stupid. I'm just like, I understand why you use your body to get influence and income, because you're absolutely stupid. Which may be their fault, maybe their parents' fault, who knows. But these women, they can't think, they can't rationalize their way out of a wet paper bag. It's just painful to watch. And perhaps more painful than that is, because of whatever wave feminism you want to blame it on, guys, American guys, men in the West, are taking themselves out of the game. They're saying, you know what? I don't need to get married. I don't even need to date, because dating is dangerous. You used to be able to ask a woman out at work. You know, you see a girl there and you say, hey, do you want to get lunch? Do you want to get coffee? Do you want to get dinner? If you're attractive, maybe if you're over 6 feet, if you make a lot of money, you might be able to do that. If you're none of those things, you are going to get fired. You're probably going to get charges pressed against you and be labeled a sexual harasser, or get some crazy HR thing slapped on you that essentially is going to end your career at that company or possibly that industry. And because of that social pressure, it's a non-permissive environment for men. Even for wimpy men. Forget about like a masculine man who, like my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, super smart dude, works in finance, speaks several languages. He's a very successful young man. Laser focused. He's actually getting married in a couple of months. But I know for the company in the finance sector that he works in, I know that it would have been impossible for him to find a suitor in that group of people. Absolutely not. Now, of course, he actually, I don't know if if my soon-to-be sister-in-law he worked at Chick-fil-A all through high school and ended up being
Mhm.
like some kind of manager. Anyway, I don't know if she actually worked there, but they've known each other for many years. The point is, this crap is ridiculous. Men live in a non-permissive environment because of one of the waves of feminism, and feminism has kind of come full circle to eat itself, because first it was, we're going to enter the workforce, we want equal rights, and we don't want to be objectified. Do not say that we need to sleep our way into promotions or that we need to use our body to get ahead. And now it's objectify us,
Mhm.
use our bodies to help us get influence and income and power in the world. And I don't see how the initial feminists and these third wave chicks aren't like duking it out in the street.
Because
Like,
I don't think any of them actually know what being a feminist means anymore. It's just something that changes so drastically. It changes with the times. I mean, we have women who call themselves feminists arguing for men to be able to come into the bathroom with them and to take over their sports.
yeah.
Nobody actually knows what being a feminist means anymore. Much like most of these labels, these activist labels that people take on now, it's like there's no real definition. People just want to feel like they belong to something or they stand for something, when honestly they don't stand for anything because it's constantly changing. So that's why they're not duking it out, because nobody knows exactly what they stand for at any point in time. um, I think it's really, I mean, back to this moral decay. This is intentional. This is meant to, just one more thing that's meant to dehumanize women and incapacitate men. It's, using something, especially the adult entertainment industry, the primary customer base, though there are, a significant number of women who probably view it and whatever else, it does tend to be men. And it's like using something that men are particularly susceptible to and a weakness for them, and using it to, as you said, keep them from going out and actually seeking a partner and doing something productive with their life, as we've seen. This attack on masculinity, this attack on men having this role of being the provider and the protector of society, it's completely been decimated. So now men don't really know what to do with themselves, and they're like, you know what, I can enjoy the company of this AI generated figure and get all the things that are going to make me at least temporarily happy without the difficulty of having to deal with the women that are out there today that don't appreciate what men have to offer. So I think obviously both sides, both men and women, are being uh, incapacitated in their roles and the things that they best offer society. So it's really unfortunate, and I think this rise of AI, particularly in this field, is going to put that final nail in the coffin to keep men from pretty much doing anything. And it's
Yep.
really terrifying.
It increases anxiety, depression, it decreases testosterone levels. It's like the saddest and stupidest thing in the world, and people don't believe that China is a major player in the proliferation of this crap, which isn't allowed over there with their youths. But whatever. It doesn't matter if we have more guns than people, if we have more guns than men, if those men are porn addicted sissies that can't fight, can't wake up before 8 a.m.
Well,
It's
and they don't have any value. Like when people in general aren't productive and they are not out creating and contributing to society, they don't see any value in protecting that society. So they're not contributing anything. They're in a society that thinks that all of them are terrible anyway, that any demonstration of contributing to society in a masculine way is now toxic. So why even bother? I mean, they don't even want to go out and get a job. Why on earth would they want to go out and defend their country? So
yep.
yeah, to say, to say that that China isn't behind it is extremely, I don't know, you've got to be living in a state of denial, because it's far easier to take over a demoralized country than it is to take over an armed one. So if they can just convince people that there's nothing worth fighting for, then they've won.
Yep. All right. Well, that's enough of that lovely story. I literally I scrolled for like 10 seconds to be like, is there anywhere on this Instagram that isn't totally ridiculous that we could put it on the screen? The answer was no. So yeah, good riddance with that.
I could have told you that. I didn't even look at it. I could have told you that.
Thanks.
She's not going to be baking cookies. At least.
She's not real. Like, it cracks me up. I watched Jeremy from the Quarterings video on it, and he was like, who's falling for these videos? Some of the videos, she doesn't have knuckles. Now, granted, I don't think most people are looking at her hands, but she doesn't have... Guys, people have knuckles.
Yeah.
So, anyway, she makes a lot of money. That's freaking ridiculous. Good job, man. We're giving our money to foreign-made AI bots. It just blows me away. Why would we even do a show? We could just make some AI chick and get her out there. Good Lord.
But I just want to say something encouraging to the men out there, because I want you to know that it still matters. Those little acts of kindness where you are respecting women. This is something that I notice every single day when I go to work. I have to get on the elevator and go up like 30 floors. And every single day, at the end of the day, when there's like a bunch of us packed into the elevator coming down, the men always, all of them, always wait for the women to get off the elevator first. Wow. It doesn't matter where they're standing in the elevator. It doesn't matter if they're at the front. I have never seen, I've been in this building for over a year. I have never seen a man get off the elevator first. They always stop and they always wait. And it might seem like something that is so small and insignificant, but I notice it every single time. And it makes me feel respected. Does it mean that they're showing a sign, telling me that I'm weak, that I can't handle being, waiting behind the men, or that it matters to me that much, like who gets off the elevator first? No, it's just that sign of respect. And I just want men to know that continuing to do even those little things, someone notices. And so please keep doing those things.
None of the dudes out here, I live out by DC, none of the guys out here are chivalrous at all. It's a travesty.
That's true. I'm in Texas, so.
Yeah, it's just nonsense. All right, well, guys, we're going to jump into Leave the World Behind. I'm on a roll. I've said it right twice now. I've not said it right all week. Ask my wife. Leave the World Behind. Yes. I wish that I could leave the memory of this movie behind. And hear me, I don't know if Samantha feels this way. I am not downing this movie because they try and make the white character out to be overtly racist, or because it was produced by the Obamas. I don't care if rich people produce movies. I enjoy movies. I'm not hating on this because it's a Netflix product. You guys know I axed my Netflix after Cuties and that whole nonsense. And I still did, so I had to use a friend's account to watch it, and it just affirmed my decision not to have Netflix, because there's nothing on there that I want to see. Actually, that's not true. The Dave Chappelle, his newest special, I would want to watch that. The one that opens with the trans joke, which I've seen that joke online. It's very funny. It makes it's the perfect story, the perfect joke. Where I'm not downing this movie for those reasons. I'm downing this movie because it blows. It's a terrible movie. I love the cinema. I'm a huge fan of great cinema, like Sicario. The first Sicario is a modern classic. Wonderful, brilliant movie. And books that are made into movies are usually very good. Number one, it usually has to be a very well-known, well-performing book, like The Great Gatsby, or Harry Potter, or Lord of the Rings. They have to be really good books that have a really big following, and someone picks it up and makes it into a movie. Now, the book Leave the World Behind, I had never heard of it. I heard of it after the making of the movie. And this movie blows. You can tell that it's an extremely low budget kind of, let's get an Airbnb or a VRBO or two and film. Maybe actually on Long Island. I don't know. But
Yeah. No,
I just thought
I
the
think
movie
I have
sucked.
to. I had that disclaimer in my mind as well. It's like I don't want people to think that I went into watching this movie with the intention to dislike it just because the Obamas were the executive producers, just because I knew that there were definitely going to be underlying woke messages in it. I generally enjoy this kind of movie. It kind of had that M. Night Shyamalan feel, at least a very like they attempted and failed miserably, but you kind of get that vibe from it. And I really do like a lot of M. Night Shyamalan movies. I like things that are more of the psychological thriller. I enjoy this kind of movie. So it's right up my alley. It's something that I would typically gravitate towards. It took me probably about 8 seconds to hate it. And it was like 2.5 hours long. I was like, oh my gosh, now that I've started it, I have to finish it. This is going to take forever. Um, yeah.
Can I tell
I'm
you what
actually,
I was thinking the whole time?
yes.
Never again. I was like, Samantha suggested this, and I was like, never again. She's gonna be like, hey, so full disclosure, a couple of weeks ago, we're talking about content, and I think you said something like, are we gonna be doing different segments? And we were both kind of like, yeah, we want to try some new segments, maybe do some movie reviews. And whoever said it first, the other one was like, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. That sounds great. But for this to be the first one, we are not off to a good start. This movie was so bad. Uh,
I, well, and I figured it wasn't going to be great. I didn't think it was going to be this bad. And I wanted to review it because a lot of people were talking about it. There were some clips floating around, and I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what this is about. Because, a lot of times things go around on the internet and people overblow it, or, they make a big deal about something because they're
oh yeah,
looking
they
for a
blew this
particular
movie.
message. I'm just like, everything about this movie was bad. So we should talk about it. So
Yep.
we should stop talking about how terrible we thought it was and tell people. There will be spoilers, like I said. So if you haven't seen this, you're going to want to pause, and then you're going to want to change your mind and just come back and let us tell you. So,
Yeah. It's so bad. If you want to waste 2.5 hours of your life, go for it.
yeah, you will never get that time back. And we don't know how much time we have left before Jesus comes. So if you watch this movie, I guarantee Jesus will be here by the end of it. So let's, it's an easy movie to make fun of. So should I give the synopsis? Do you want to give a synopsis?
Go for it.
Okay. Well, okay. So this is the overview of the movie. You've got this family. You've got Amanda and Clay Sanford, and they have two kids who are Rose and Archie.
Oh my
And at
gosh,
the
you
last
remember
minute,
their names.
I wrote it down because
Oh.
I kept forgetting. I kept forgetting their names. I was like, and they decided to take this vacation at the last minute. The opening scene is Amanda Sanford, who is played by Julia Roberts. She's saying, we're going to go
We
take
are
this.
going to watch the opening scene, so hang on to your hats, folks.
Okay. So they decide to take this vacation as last minute. So they drive to this massive Airbnb on Long Island, and they probably enjoy about I'm not sure entirely how long they enjoyed their time there before things start to kind of fall apart. It felt like weeks, but it was probably like 5 minutes. So, so they're enjoying their time, and then in the middle of the night, I believe it's on the first night there, these people show up at the door, and they tell the Sanfords that this is their home. And it's worth noting that the Sanfords are white, and the people that show up, George and Ruth Scott, are black. And they're standing there in their formal attire, and they tell the Sanfords, "We're sorry to interrupt, but this is our house." And you can see Julia Roberts' character Amanda looking at these
She's
black
like,
people on the
nah.
doorstep, and she's like,
But
"This is your house."
it's so labored. She's like, your house? She's like, this White House belongs to this black. It is a White House on the
Right.
outside. It's
And you
so
can
painful.
tell just by the way she says it. It's not the fact that there are random people standing on the doorstep saying, "Hey, this is our house." It's not that level of skepticism. It is literally because they are black, and you can see on her face that she, as a white person, does not believe that somebody that is black is capable of owning a home like this. And just the way that she says
But
it.
yes and no. They try and make that like a fact in the movie, but they also make blatantly obvious that she just hates people. All people.
Yeah.
White people, black people, Asian people, men, women. If there are other options, those two. Her character says many times that she just hates people. She's not available for anyone.
Yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
then they're
I'm pretty
also
sure.
like, she extra hates black people.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's definitely a theme. You understand that this woman just literally hates everyone. I believe her character was based on what we might call a Karen.
A Karen.
So, just as kind of an overview of the rest of the movie, they allow this family, the Scotts, to come in and stay with them in the home, very reluctantly. While Amanda is very reluctant, her husband is definitely painted as this clueless, useless human being who is either told what to do by Amanda, or he is told what to do by George Scott, who is the black man. He has no idea what's going on unless somebody is pointing him in a particular direction. Otherwise, he's just a lump. It unfolds that there is a cyber attack, and they are experiencing a blackout, which is why the Scotts came to their vacation rental, because they didn't want to stay in the city. And I know that they explained a few other reasons. And while this is all happening, there's a lot of weird events that unfold. There's a big oil tanker that ends up on the beach. They show the beach, which clearly must be completely trashed because human beings are terrible and we're just destroying the planet, and we aren't capable of having any clean spaces. And they just kind of go through this movie trying to figure out how they're going to deal with this cyber attack and trying to get as much information as possible about why it's happening. But there's a blackout. There's no internet. They have no connection with anything or anybody, and you really don't get any answers. And then all of the animals are acting weird, and they don't tell you why.
Oh, they allude, because animals do act weird when there are natural disasters afoot, or they seem to have a pretty good sense of when humans are screwing around too. You know, something's about to go down. I don't know why that is, but it's true. It is absolutely true. So that's a really good synopsis. Just so you can see something, we'll watch this kind of chopped up of the intro of the movie. And I'm telling you, we have 5 clips. You've already seen one, the cold open. It showed some of the Easter eggs of the movie that you might have heard about, with the changing pictures and the obsession with blue. When it first started, 10 seconds in, I was like, oh, this director's trying to do a blue thing, because it was too much on the nose. Like, again, not a good movie.
No.
So we'll watch this. I hope the volume's okay. Set in crap hole New York City, and then moving to slightly less of a crap hole Long Island.
What are you doing? And I just seem to be working every day without even realizing it. And you are just constantly anxious about your job because of all the budget cuts. So I went online this morning and I rented us a beautiful house out by the beach.
When did you rent the house for?
Today.
But help me out here, babe. I mean,
I just rented a house.
I saw all
We're
these
leaving.
people starting their day with such tenacity, such verve, all in an effort to make something of themselves, make something of our world. I felt so lucky to be a part of that. But then I remembered what the world is actually like. And I came to a more accurate realization. I hate people.
And that's basically her character. And this was true. She hates people. She hates everyone. I think she hates her husband.
I'm pretty sure she does too. And I wasn't really sure what to make of that whole monologue. That seems a little bit bipolar. Like, I'm so lucky to be a part of it and everybody sucks. Okay. So
Honestly, if you mix this monologue with the later monologue that we're not going to watch, but when she's talking with the daughter, the Scott's daughter,
Ruth.
and she's saying basically the moment that they agree with each other, ooh, the angsty white woman and the young cool black girl agree, is they're like, humans are a scourge on the earth, we're so bad, and we think that drinking with our stupid paper straws is going to do anything. She just hates people. Which is the new humanist idea. The old humanist idea was hedonistic. It was live for pleasure. If it makes you feel good, do it. Commitment or other people's feelings, be darned. But now there's this weird new spin. Maybe it's second or third wave humanism is like humans are bad. Old humanism is like feed me, entertain me, give me riches and pleasure. And now it's like we're the worst. We should be eradicated, which is like, well, you can do that to yourself anytime you'd like. Why don't you, Michael Jackson said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think her entire character, like the whole point of her character is to remind us anytime that there might be like a positive light shed on human beings, she is there to remind us that we all suck, we're all terrible, we do not care about each other, we don't care about the planet. And essentially by the end of it, I truly believe they want us to think that whatever is happening to these people and to the planet and to the cities is something that we deserve. So I think that that's something that when they're having later in the movie, when she is having that moment in the shed with Ruth Scott, the daughter of the other guy, I think that is some kind of an underlying message that they both agree on, is that we're terrible and that we don't deserve the planet that we have. So it's very, I don't know. I would I just can't imagine living my life that way and thinking, you're not allowed to think anything good about human beings and not allowed to recognize any of the good that human beings do, which I think is a particularly prevalent message under the climate change agenda, is that there is no redeemable qualities for us. We need to have all of these policies with climate change to come into place to save us from ourselves, because we're not going to do anything positive on our own. So, and she very much reminds us of that through the whole movie.
Before we talk about my favorite piece of propaganda from this movie, shout out to Dad's 782 gear on Rumble for following myself and Outspoken Samantha on Rumble and Twitter. And I think I've decided to call it Twitter so long as you tweet. But if they come out with something like, I sent an X on X or whatever, then maybe I'll change. But I think you said that. You were like, is it still a tweet? And I'm like, yeah, if we're tweeting, it's Twitter.
Yeah.
But he says, hey guys, found you on X, followed you both here. Better movie if you're high, I've heard. So
I can see that.
I don't even know. I mean, it would
I
have
wouldn't
to
know
be
either,
like
but
grade A, like medical. Like it would need to
Mhm.
be like Pineapple Express or something. Uh,
Right.
anyways, yes, I've heard there's something called Northern Lights that's supposed to be robust. Anyway, back to your if the little trailer that I made, because it's fair use YouTube, it's fair use. It's definitely not intended for profit. It is way less than a quarter of the original product, and the other two bullets have been checked too. We can talk about that later. But this is my favorite propaganda. The noise is going on. You know, that crazy noise that you heard playing at the cold open of the show.
Mhm.
That's the noise that's like debilitating, and everyone's on their hands and knees and trying not to hear it. While that's going on and this dark red cast is coming over the earth, we're viewing it from the moon's perspective, and they're showing us that flag. Now, the flashes aren't happening. I added the flashes so you could see the two scenes on top of each other. But so they're showing us the definitely real, definitely still up there from when we went 50 years ago, but lost the technology and re-recorded over the tapes and all that stuff. But the totally real American flag planted by astronauts, we're seeing it from that angle, looking at the earth. The earth goes all red, and then the kids walk out of the woods to find their mom on her hands and knees because she's still hurting from the ear thing, but they're fine. And you realize that the shirts they've been wearing for like, I don't know, was it 20 minutes of the movie? It felt like 3 hours. Say obey NASA on them, which is just hilarious. Like this is my favorite piece of propaganda from the movie. Well done.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting little clip to throw in there. I don't really have an opinion about it. I just thought it was stupid.
It is totally stupid.
It was so stupid.
Honestly, they did this one on purpose. There are a lot of subliminal messages in this movie, but they did this one on purpose. They did this one for exactly what's happening now, for the free marketing. I laughed out loud. This is, I think, the only laugh that I got the whole entire movie was this.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was stupid. That's all. It was just so blatant. I was like, really? So.
All right. Here's well, I actually watched this one. So this is, the mistrust is building between the cast, and then we'll talk about it. He's just arrived from the symphony.
You're not gonna believe this, but I left my wallet in my coat pocket, which I checked at the symphony. And all the commotion, I must have forgotten it there.
She had just asked for his ID.
Said you heard about the blackout while you were on your way home.
This is a national emergency.
Looks like you did the right thing getting out of the city.
Well, we're only talking about a blackout here.
A blackout is not nothing. It could be something. It could be a symptom of something bigger, like terrorism or a bomb, like the one that you said your son would sleep through.
Ruth, I think that you should stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll sort through everything. Things always look different by the light of day.
We need to get them out of here.
We're not gonna do that by scaring them. They need to think everything's gonna be okay.
Everything is gonna be okay, isn't it?
Now, I actually like this scene. I think this is one of the only scenes in the whole movie that I like, because it is advancing the plot. It's explaining some of what's happened. So this 1 minute that we just watched was like it. The only enjoyable part of the whole movie for me was laughing at the moon scene. And and this one scene here, because it's unpacking a lot of the dynamics of the movie in a minute. And they took an additional 45 minutes to really fortify the same points that we just got. Instead of having an opening to the movie, hey, these are the characters, this is the setting, this is what's going down, and here's the explanation of the plot, and then get into the plot. Like, this movie made me feel like I know what intimacy is like for a woman. Because the plot never came. It really didn't. Like, never. And I was like, this is going on so long. Something's got to happen. And it just never did. Like, again, this is another thing that I said. This movie's just terrible. Anyway, this is the whole of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't trust each other. And he's got some feelings that things are really not okay, which is why he did the right thing and got his daughter and got the heck out of Dodge, getting out of crap hole New York City and going to slightly less crap hole Long Island, especially the further east on the island you go. But they're trading in information. They're not telling each other stuff. The White family's not saying that they saw the oil tanker crash. They're not saying what all went down with the blackout, because what you know, for paying attention to 2020 and the riots all over the country, a blackout in a place like New York City where there are 12 million people crammed into like less than 20 square mile area is extremely dangerous. It's nuts. Yep. But what were you going to say?
I don't know. But I think that, I mean, it's probably one of the only points of the movie that makes sense is them leaving New York City in the middle of a blackout. It's like, oh, I totally understand why that happened. It's probably the only time I had that thought. I agree. I mean, this was probably, it was what, like a 30-second scene, and it was well done. And that's probably about it. But just this general mistrust going through the whole movie. But I mean, it's like the movie gives you this idea that people just naturally distrust each other while contradicting itself and demonstrating and showing you characters that don't communicate with each other and don't tell each other what each other knows. And, you know, everyone's kind of experiencing different things. And as one you know, they'll have like a major event happen with one character, like the oil tanker, and they don't tell this family here, and he's got a bunch of information based on his profession, but he doesn't share that with the family. And then he goes off to try to, you know, find to communicate with or to connect with his neighbors, and this massive plane crashes into the beach, and he chooses not to tell anybody about that. So it's like, which is it? Are we just naturally not trustworthy human beings, or are we just, does the trust come because we don't communicate with each other and we don't share information with each other? Are we actually the cause of that distrust? And is it a problem that we're able to solve? So I feel like that's kind of contradictory. It doesn't make any sense.
Yep. I completely agree. So other things that happened in this movie, I thought this one was crafty. So the daughter, Rose, the what is their last name? Sandberg?
Sanford.
Sure.
Sanford.
Rose, the daughter, has this obsession.
Reminds me of Dumb and Dumber when he's like, Swamp, Swanson, Swabby.
Samsonite. She has this obsession with the show Friends, you know, that Friends. And great show, not wholesome, total frivolous nonsense, but I've watched every episode at least twice. You know, I watched as Rachel gets essentially more reckless and more rewarded, and Ross, who's respectable, intelligent, you know, guy, as he becomes more self-deprecating, then everyone likes him more. So that kind of thing. I get the messaging of Friends. I see what you did there, whatever studio put that out. But she's got this obsession with the show, and she watches the penultimate episode, and then the internet dies, and she's just trying to see the final episode to find out what could happen with Ross and Rachel. Girl, it's TV. You know what happened with Ross and Rachel.
Yeah.
But the black daughter, I can't remember her name. Ruth, thank you. She's talking to the mom and saying, "Oh, it's interesting that your daughter's into that show. It's almost nostalgic for a time that never existed." And while it's easy to think, oh, she means, no one has that many friends, or the rent control ridiculousness of the show. But in my mind, it seems obvious that she's taking a stab at Friends for not having any black characters in it, which all of them have apologized profusely for. I'm sure they're going to remake Friends with all black people because that's realistic for Manhattan. But I thought that was an interesting scene.
Yeah. I wasn't really sure what to make of the daughter's obsession with the show Friends. I couldn't quite figure out why, because I know Julia Roberts had a short, brief part on Friends, and I know that she dated Matthew Perry, and so some people were kind of speculating maybe it was just kind of a nod to her. When Ruth says it's a time nostalgic to a time that never existed, it's like, is she talking about a time when people were a little more carefree and not focused on all of these issues, and it was, we were living in a state of ignorance because we weren't focused on, climate change and racism and all of these things that have always existed, and we were just kind of more naive, and we were more carefree, and we weren't paying attention. So I don't know. It just seemed, and then I was like, what, do you just assume all white people are obsessed with Friends? I mean,
racist.
We are, but
here's I don't think it was a nod to Matthew Perry, who died apparently on Julia Roberts' birthday. I didn't know that. We've watched all of the reviews of this movie, and some of them were really good. Some of them they're hit or miss. I've not heard this on any other review, so this is the part that you clip, YouTube and you rumblers out there. It seems clear to me that Rose is obsessed with Friends because, funnily enough, I'm just realizing this now. It is nostalgic of a time that definitely existed. If you remember back to in the movie Gladiator, when the gladiator is in the stadium, in the Coliseum, waving a sword out, and he says, "Are you not entertained?" Because as humans, when we get the society that the strong men make, and now we're enjoying good times, we become weak men, and we become consumed with frivolities. And the world is ending, planes are crashing, ships are crashing, and all she wants to do is be fat and happy, eating the junk food and sitting in front of the screen, watching frivolous nonsense, which I don't know if we want to talk about the ending just yet. But in a lot of ways, right now, with the economy, with the disasters that are going on around the world, with the invasion at the southern border, with the illusion of elections, there are people that just want to be entertained. They just want to watch Netflix and chill. That's it. They want ho-hos. They want fake hoes on the internet. And that's it.
Yep. Yeah, I guess, that is probably as good an explanation as we're ever going to get about why this 13-year-old is obsessed with this show. But I do. It does seem to me that it's kind of this message. I would agree that there's just always going to be this group of people that doesn't care about the world falling apart around them, that doesn't care about the fact that we're destroying the planet, or, how we treat each other, or the fact that human beings are awful. They just want the most trivial things, the things that aren't important. And even in the most world-ending circumstances, you won't be able to pry them away from those things. So it's just another nod to how horrible human beings are. We either are actively, intentionally destroying the planet, or we're just sitting back and not caring while other people are destroying the planet.
So I did not clip this part because it is the most clipped scene of any movie, I think, possibly ever in the history of the world. But Ruth and Rose, both R names, both 4-letter R names. Interesting. I'm sure the QAnon people are all over that. The letters and the numbers. This isn't that channel. You got to go somewhere else. You got to go to Truth Social for that.
Right.
But what do you make of the infamous scene, the most clipped scene, the most talked about scene, where Ruth and her dad are in the bed, because there's only one bed. There's no weirdness there, for the audience. And she says, trust shouldn't be doled out freely. You shouldn't trust people, especially not white people. And Mom would agree with me on that. What are your ideas? You're white people. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously there's going to be there's just a lot of racist messaging in this movie. Julia Roberts' character doesn't like anybody. She doesn't think that Black people are capable of owning a home like that. I mean, I think it's hilarious when she says that the dad is probably the gardener,
housekeeper,
and the
or
mom
whatever.
and the girl is the housekeeper, and it's just like, yeah, because that's just automatically what all white people are thinking. So I think that's just
dude's
kind of
wearing
the
like
counter.
a $10,000 tux. He's not. He's
Right.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, what are they paying him? I think it's interesting because the racial messaging from each side is different. You know, Julia Roberts is this white woman, and her racism just comes from the fact that she doesn't think that Black people are capable of accomplishing anything and owning, you know, being wealthy and prestigious and all these things. Whereas this daughter, Ruth, she's saying that they shouldn't trust white people simply because they're white, which is, you know, a tenet of CRT clearly, but it's like her judgment of white people is justified. It's not based on anything, you know, it's just because they're white, because of who they are, because of the way they were born, they just shouldn't be trusted at all. And just because of the overlying, you know, overall messaging in across society right now, I mean, that's an acceptable feeling to have toward white people for no reason whatsoever. And so people watching this are going to be like, yep, totally get it. Don't need a reason. She doesn't need to explain.
Totally agree. It's CRT by another name. That's when I was watching it, something happened and I was like, CRT, there it is.
Yep.
There it is. Of course, that's a conspiracy. There's no such thing. SEL, DEI, CRT, all of them are either they don't exist or they exist and they're totally legitimate. But maybe the internet didn't crash the planes. Maybe the gender non-conforming, you know, Black lesbian non-qualified pilots just nose-dived into the beach. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I don't know if you're ready to kind of steer it in a different direction, but something I do want to touch on is kind of what they present as the reason for these cyber attacks, or why everything is falling apart. Because, you know, right now, us conspiracy theorists can point to perhaps an elite organization that has a vested interest in destroying us all, killing us all. I don't know, like taking out the whole planet. Whereas in this movie, it seems like they present that messaging, but they kind of make a mockery of it. They try to, you know, when George Scott is sitting there having that conversation with Julia Roberts, and he jokingly, well, he says, you know, just out there meeting with this evil elite cabal. And then he laughs and says, oh, just kidding. But in that moment, she's like, oh, seriously? And he laughs after making that comment, like, oh, just kidding. Like, that could be real. And to me, that's almost saying, like, people that actually believe that should not be taken seriously. So it's almost like trying to let the air out of that balloon, trying to deflate that messaging and just make it sound as unbelievable and crazy as possible.
See, I see it differently. I see the same situation as like 9/11. On 9/11, there's a boy on the street crying, I think after the first tower is hit, and he's crying because he thinks this means the tower is going to be destroyed. And there was actually a civil engineer who was working on the tower, who's very intimately familiar with the structural integrity of skyscrapers because he makes skyscrapers. This was before 9/11 truthers. This was before, engineers and civil whatever architects for justice or whatever existed. This was on the day, and he said, "Don't worry," to the little boy. He said, "These towers are designed to withstand a lot more than this. They'll be fine." Well, it'll be fine because just the one tower was struck at that moment. So on that day, he knew something was wrong. Maybe in his mind, but his heart wouldn't allow him to believe that. And one of those elements overrides the other, and we say this couldn't be happening. That's why people go into shock a lot of times when catastrophic injury happens to someone in front of them. Their brain is saying, this can't, no, this can't be real. Well, he's kind of torn because he knows, he studies the markets, he does this for a living, he knows about these black swan events, good, bad, or ugly, and he sees it, but he doesn't want to believe it because of what it would mean, the end of the world as we know it. The same as a philosopher in, the Roman Republic, when the empire falls, they can see it. They see what's happening. They see Caligula. They see the Caesars losing their grip on the Republic, but you can't just, I feel that way now. I feel that way about America because I know that historians will look at our country and say a date far to the left is when the American experiment was over and died. And, we're not like Danny just yet. We're not hauling water and gasoline, guns, gold, and ammo, in our truck, just ready to drive off to Canada or something. I don't know. I feel a lot of the dad in the movie because it's just like, what do you do? We're having our 5th kid. Life's got to go on, but at the same time,
what is that gonna look like?
Yeah.
No, I can see it. I can see that as well. I mean, and maybe it's to kind of, I don't know. It was so confusing about what they were trying to tell us about what this might look like in real life. And it's interesting because it just seems like in general, people now don't believe the things that are happening right in front of their faces. And I don't know if people would recognize how badly things were falling apart if they got to this, this level of this extreme. So I don't know. I don't know exactly where they were going with that. I was looking at some of the notes that you made, and how people would respond to some kind of global event like this, especially in the scene when they go to see Danny, who is this prepper, and he's got all of these things and generally has been known as this nice, friendly, giving, generous neighbor. Yet now that it's the end of the world, he's like, everyone for themselves, every man for himself. And again, just feeding that narrative that we're all just terrible human beings and we are just inherently irredeemably selfish and self-serving and don't care about our fellow men.
I don't know what to make of Danny. I mean, he's right, he's wrong, he's hot, he's cold, he's in, he's out, he's up, he's down. No, he's
Yeah.
I
He's
in
bi,
my
he's trans,
neighborhood,
he's straight.
yeah, in my neighborhood, I'm probably one of the more prepared people. Um,
Mhm.
but because I have it doesn't mean I have to. Clay turned into a full socialist when he was at Danny's house. He was like, you have to help us because we have the need and you have the thing that we need. So you got to give it to us. And he was sitting there with a shotgun like, that boat don't float. Like, no, I don't have to give it to you. I have that scene clipped. So we're definitely going to watch that because I think the most culturally significant thing happens in that scene, and it's not them pointing the guns at each other. But on the chaos side of it, just to touch on it briefly for people that are, could this really happen? There are these noises with the radiation. It all sounds kind of sci-fi. Not sci-fi, guys. Already has existed for many, many, many moons. You just don't know about it. These are called NKE weapons, a non-kinetic energy weapon. There are experts in this all over the world, and it can literally be just like it was in the movie where you hear a loud boom, and then if you pay attention before the, apparently Obama helped them fix some inaccuracies, and he was like, oh, it's really more like this. Well, a non-kinetic energy weapon would be you hear boom like an explosion, but instead of seeing something blow up, there would be a piercing, debilitating sound that comes afterward. So you can learn all about. This isn't magic and sci-fi. It's right here on the internet for you on the Geneva Convention, the Geneva Academy's website, where they talk about non-kinetic energy weapons, which can inflict harm through emissions of different forms of radiation or sound, diffusion of chemicals or biological agents, or transmission of electricity, rather than the application of kinetic energy possessed by a fragment. So instead of like, boom, I'm going to shoot you with a bullet, the bullet causes sharp force trauma, and the energy from the bullet tears through your body and devastates your soft tissue. This is why the 50 cal and a turret, you hit that butterfly and you miss your target, but it tears the target in half. It's because of the non-kinetic energy. Kinetic energy in the bullet, shoo, and then all that stuff around the bullet is non-kinetic. It's force that's not directly applied on an object. It's really interesting. Anyway, go down this rabbit hole on YouTube or TikTok and you won't sleep for weeks. But I can tell you, this stuff exists. Everyone talked about China some years ago. Do they have a satellite that can do microwave rays from space? Probably. I don't know. I'm not an expert in what China has or doesn't have. But these weapons are real, and they would cause exactly what the movie did. You wouldn't be holding your ears wouldn't stop it. This would be passing through all of your soft tissue. You would be getting radiated. And whether it was direct application, they don't even need a boom. They could put this in something that's like a microwave pointed at you that makes no sound. And, so they're beyond the heart attack gun that the agency used to have. They've got all kinds of different toys nowadays. But yeah, not sci-fi. Could happen. Probably is happening somewhere in the world. Who the heck knows? Is this predictive programming to... What?
I said great.
Allegedly, I don't know. But I saw a lot of bickering on the internet about how something like this could never happen, and I just kind of laughed out loud because I'm like, these technologies aren't even being developed. These are old technologies. Who the heck knows what's being developed now? The citations from this are from 2011. It's 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything you think can't happen is probably being developed or has been developed already. So just as a little side note, guys, I think we need to get close to wrapping this up. So what is the clip that you wanted to share about, is it Danny?
Yeah, we'll skip the encounter with the Hispanic woman. All I'll say about that is, guys, don't do stupid stuff. Like he gets caught by the drone. The drone was dropping pamphlets on the street. When it's going down, you don't have to drive on the road. You can drive off the road. Or when you're running for your life, take a lesson from the Marine Corps. The way to do fighting for your life, lateral movements. Don't run in a straight line. If you're running from a plane, don't run in a straight line. Lateral movements. Run left and right. Goodness gracious. You shouldn't have to tell people this. All right, so this is like one of the last scenes in the very, very, very long movie. So just watch this. You'll feel like you got the whole thing from evil Julia Roberts in the beginning to her weak wimp of a husband in the end. And yeah, this is what happens. There's Danny.
We're not going anywhere till you give us what we need.
There's a socialist.
That's
What the f is going on right now?
Get back in your vehicle and drive away now.
Drive.
Now, anyone who's a gunfighter knows that you don't draw on a drawn weapon, so Danny would have splattered him all over the driveway with a shotgun when he reached behind him and look at this draw. Yeah, he would have been blown away. But anyway, let's look beyond that.
Wait, what? All the roads are blocked. We're
In your vehicle and drive away now.
drive away to what? All the roads are blocked. We're in the middle of God knows where. There's no one else around. I have no idea what I am supposed to do right now. I can barely do anything without my cell phone and my GPS. I am a useless man. We came to you because you're the only one who can help my son.
Not my problem.
No, you're right. It's not. But it's like you said. Right? What would you do if it was your family? That's what I'm doing. It's the only thing I can do. I am begging you.
And that's the whole game right there. This whole movie, Clay is a useless man. He's driving around on Long Island and he's lost and he can't find anything and he's terrified. He can't get back. Guy, I'm from Long Island. Fun fact, I know. I pretend to be a Virginian. I love Virginia, but I'm technically a New Yorker. Don't hold it against me. I'm from right here next to Queens. It's a freaking Long Island. You can look at this. Samantha, have you ever been to Long Island?
I have not. I've been to New York. I've never been to, I don't think I've been to Long Island.
All right, look at the shape of the island real quick.
There's only so many directions you can go.
What orientation do you think the roads are in?
What do you mean?
Like, if you had to drop roads to traverse this island with its shape, what do you think most of the roads, like which way they're running?
They're running along the coast. They're running you're not going to have roads that are going like up and down from side to side like this. You're going to have essentially one road down the middle of it.
Yes, it is so insanely easy to navigate Long Island. Look, spoiler alert. Now, these aren't the roads. These are the trains. And guess what? You can drive along train tracks. Like, oh my gosh. Primarily, the roads on Long Island run east to west. It's a freaking Long Island. Like, what kind of idiot gets lost? This is because we don't use our brains, we use our GPSs. The world is ending. GPS hasn't worked for days, weeks, I don't know. And Clay is still trying to use it. It doesn't work, man. Use your eyeballs. Use the knowledge that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And you're on a Long Island that has an east tip. I can tell you based on... This was actually kind of a screw up from the movie. So Long Island gets bougier the further east you go. So like the Great Gatsby type stuff is way out on the right side of the island on the east side. It gets more hood the further west you go into the crap hole of New York City. A lot of people don't realize this, but Queens and Brooklyn is on Long Island. That's why the LIE, the Long Island Expressway, goes through all of that. So they were not looking across the water at the city being bombed. They were probably much further east on the island. Anyway, just
Yeah.
a slight mess up for the director there. But my dude, you were probably very eastward on the island. You were driving west on, and it shows him driving. The road he's driving on is a long, straight road. How do you get lost? Are you kidding?
Yeah. And how often he has to ask, like, how he gets back to the city. So I just get on the expressway, right?
He
So I just
lives
get on the
there.
expressway. It's like,
He lives in New York City.
I don't think you have several different routes to choose from. It's like,
You have two.
yeah.
You have the toll road and the non-toll road. They both go east to west. They both
Yeah.
I haven't driven in Long Island in so long, and I can navigate there. It just blows my mind, dude. And he's from there.
The intention was to make him as stupid and as useless as possible. And I couldn't help but think the whole time, I'm like, Ethan Hawke is so gross. I think I wrote that about 3 times in my notes, but yeah, it's, I'm like, yeah, it's just, you can tell that this is an underlying message that definitely got the white male character that can't do anything, completely useless without technology. In the face of an event, do not ask the white male for help. And the one that does have the resources to help you is going to try and shoot you in the face if you ask. So that's what they want you to think, at least. Very blatant.
I'll tell you right now, don't just show up with your hand out. You got to show up with something to barter with, or a skill, or a pitch, a commitment of some kind. But you can't say, you have what we need. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
He would have shot him right then. He would have shot him right then when he said, we're not going anywhere. All right, well, that's a threat, dude. Are you serious? And he had the shotgun already out.
Yeah. Well, then the whole situation is saved by cash, because apparently that is the only thing that motivates people to help one another, is the fact that Clay's character just happens to have a wallet full of cash. So
he gives him $1,000.
Yeah, they're
what are you gonna use
just
that
for context.
Money for?
They're trying to get medicine for his son, whose teeth have all completely fallen out, and they're blaming this radiation sound that's coming through the air, but the son, his teeth are the only ones that fall out. Nobody else's teeth are affected. So I don't know, but they're trying to get medicine for him for some reason. This prepper guy just happens to have the perfect medicine that cures your teeth falling out.
I got some preps. I do not have radiation sickness meds.
Yeah. So that whole thing was interesting. I have kind of a theory about why the Obamas wanted to do this movie overall, aside from the fact that they're like, yes, climate change, yes, racism, yes, like evil cabal. Because believe it or not, guys, there was actually a bidding war for this movie. There were multiple people who wanted to be able to make this movie, which I do not understand, because there was nothing remarkable about this book, nothing remarkable about the story whatsoever. But the book came out in 2020, written by author Ruman something. And apparently there were several people that wanted to turn it into a movie. Perhaps it was because
all of those people are in the cabal, just so you guys know.
All of them. So as I'm watching this movie and looking at the different characters, the character G.H. Scott, I honestly think that Obama sees himself in this character. Because if you watch George Scott's character, he's, this wealthy black man, and through every situation, every possible conflict, everything that could possibly be going wrong, he is this calm, almost savior type character. And we know that Obama, to an extent, sees himself as some kind of messiah. He knows everything. He has, all of this figured out. And I think that he seeing this and perhaps read this story and he's like, that's me. Like, you know, I can save the world. I can be this calming voice. People just turn to me and I will have all of the information. It just kind of seemed a little too familiar in some ways. Am I off my rocker on that?
It's so interesting. We do the show so organically. I didn't think of that, but that's a really good point. I thought it was a what's the word? Like a decoder type. This is like the most Q thing I'm ever gonna say. I apologize in advance. But I thought it was interesting that it was G. Scott with an H, which is very George Sorosy. Their first name is the same. Their last name is the same number of letters. It starts with the same letter. So the initials are the same, but then they have this H thing. And I was like, okay, well, George Soros doesn't have a middle name, but he has this weird honorable FBA title, which would be G.H. Soros. But anyway, that...
Interesting.
But your theory is really good because while I was watching it, I was like, I feel like he's got this Obama swag thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like Obama was there like, come here, son, you need to do it like this. When you walk, when you don't face the door so you can turn around.
Yeah. Exactly. It just kind of crossed my mind. It just seems like he would read that story and be like, yes, like we need to put this on the screen. This is me. Overall, terrible. This to me, I've never read the book, and will never read the book.
No way.
But
no way.
The movie was painful enough. But as I'm watching the movie, I was thinking, this is how you do not adapt a book to a movie. Because when you're writing a book, you take 30 pages to set a scene. You have to use so much descriptor content to set the scene, to set the mood, to get people's brains going about what could happen. There are so many things that you have to do to pull people in, and it works for a book. We know that when you adapt a book to a movie, you have to take things out. You have to change things. You have to make adjustments, and you have to compress things because you don't need as much time. What you are accomplishing in 15, 20 pages in a book, you can do in like 30 seconds in a movie. But it's almost like they looked at this book and said, we cannot leave one thing out. It's almost like you're reading the book on screen in movie format.
Yep. Oh, that's good.
They dragged everything out for so long. I mean, like I said, it took me 3 nights to watch it. The first night I watched 45 minutes of it, and I was like, that first 45 minutes probably could have been done in about 8 minutes.
Yep.
There was no reason, nothing happened. And the only scary thing that happened in that first 45 minutes, and probably the whole movie, was when the Jenga tower fell over for no reason.
No one died. It's the end of the world and no one died.
No one died.
Pissed me
There's
off.
no monsters. There's no zombies. Nothing. And I am saying this from somebody I get really scared really easily. It does not take much to make me jump. Most scary movies, I like spend covering my eyes and then I ask my husband what happened. I just can't handle it. This one, I was like, I am so bored. I am so incredibly bored. They need to use this movie as some form of punishment in a maximum security prison. And if you gave prisoners the choice between solitary confinement and watching this movie, they would choose solitary confinement every time.
Now, again, I disagree. There was something that scared me all throughout the movie, and it was every time that you like bump the mouse and you can see the progress bar, and I'm like, holy F, there's that much movie left. It was the worst. Oh my gosh, you nailed it. It was like watching the book in book form on screen. That is it. That's
Yeah.
that's the authoritative word, the authoritative critique on this movie. Exactly what Samantha said.
Yeah,
Oh
that's what
gosh.
it felt like. It's so if anybody ever looks at a book and wants to turn it into a movie, just look at this movie and say this is what not to do, because they took no creative liberty whatsoever. And if this is what the book is like, don't bother. Just don't.
Yeah, no way.
um, yeah, I don't understand. I know we were trying to figure out why they made this movie at this time. The book was only written in 2020,
Of
and there were
course
all
it
these people
was.
clamoring to make it.
Ugh.
I can't think of a good reason as to why they would.
I mean, it's on the World Economic Forum's agenda, so I guess they had to make it.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's all we have. I was gonna say a word about my dad. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. Uh,
is it
Plus
okay if I do?
we're way over time. Yeah, it's fine if you do. Yeah.
It's up to you. If
All
you
right.
want. Okay.
No, I'll go. So I guess the show is technically officially over. I did want to address that I've already posted this on social media. But if you're a fan of the show, then you've seen, you've heard that my dad passed away this week, which wasn't completely unexpected. He's had lung cancer several times throughout his life over the last 15 years. And oh my gosh, I just feel like I'm getting so old. It is 2024. So yeah, like over the last 12, 13 years. Anyway, this third round, he did not survive. Some people were wondering why I was still doing a show because I had just posted this on the internet yesterday. So I did want to talk about that ever so slightly, but this is the man, the myth, the legend, my dad, Carrie Mobley, who has two namesakes, Carrie Jr. over here. The funniest thing about my brother up there on the top left is, as you see him towering over us, he's 6'11". So little Carrie's 6'11".
Oh my gosh.
I stood in front of them a little bit because I'm the smallest man in my family. My dad, 6'3". My brother 6'11". I'm 6'1", so I should feel good about my height. But next to these guys, I was the small fry. Am the small fry. But yeah, this is my dad with a quarter of his grandkids, with my 4 children. He's not going to be here for the birth of our next child, which we still don't know if we're having a boy or a girl. But one of the main reason that I decided to do today's show, don't know if I will be taking a break. The funeral's next week, and I'm sure everything will continue to be a super tough time for me and for my whole family. But super happy guy, great dad. But this is him sitting in the very chair that I'm sitting in. And it's a really good memory. It was kind of a goofy occurrence because I work, this is my work office when I'm not off doing whatever classified things. I just work here at this workstation, and this is my Joe Mobley Show workstation over here. And as I've built the studio out in my house and gotten things set up, different cameras and lights and stuff, every time he would visit, he would, he listens to the show. Decently free thinking, but definitely a liberal. I'd say more of a Democrat than a liberal, not a progressive at all. But my family is a big Black New York family, so 95% Democrats for sure. And but he loved my show. He listened to every episode. My mom does too, and other relatives. If you guys are listening, love you all. Can't wait to see you here soon. But the last time, actually this was the last time that he was in the studio, he asked the strangest question from my perspective. I had a press pass out because I had just done some event in Florida or Virginia Beach or something. And I had just achieved some milestones in the show's life whenever this happened. And he asked if he could sit in the chair, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And while he's in the chair, he asked if I would take his picture. And I'm like, this is super weird. Why do you want a picture in my chair? And he was like, I know that your voice is more important than you know. And because you're doing this crazy, like outrageous, courageous thing, he was like, I know that you're going to impact people's lives. And he knows that I would hate to be famous, but he's like, you are going to be world famous. You're going to be a very important person, not because of your looks or your intellect or anything that you've accomplished, but because of your voice and pouring into people. And he was like, and I want to get a picture of me in the seat where it all happened. So we took this picture, and like an old boomer, he has his ID necklace. So that is bleeped out for privacy because people still live there. But yeah, this is my dad, Gary Mobley Sr., who's no longer with us. And that's why I'm doing a show today, because I know that he would want me to. I can't say that I won't miss any shows in the future as things sink in and settle and dealing with different things on the home front. But yeah. That's a little bit about him. I don't think you'd have any comments, but you're welcome to comment if you'd like.
No, I know everybody says it, but I am sorry for your loss. I know even when it is expected, it is something that is just really challenging to deal with. And I lost my dad almost 2 years ago, and he heavily influenced my desire to learn about politics and to get more involved. He was always somebody that was like going to town hall meetings and writing letters to everybody, and it's just amazing the influence, but not only that, how much their encouragement means. And so it does start to sink in when you can't call them up and talk about the latest thing that you've accomplished and share those moments. So of course, I think everybody would understand at any point when you say that you can't do a show or you need time with your family, because family always comes first. So I am sorry that is something that happened this week, but you will be in my prayers. And yeah,
Well,
those
thanks.
are my thoughts.
I made it through. I wanted to do this at the end instead of at the top, because you never know. Yes, you just never know how these things go. Well, that's it. That's the show, ladies and gents. We will see you hopefully next week. And I'm not going to run the thingy because we're so far over time.